turn. The jihadists spent their effort trying to turn that cadre into some real cells. The U.S. managed to squelch it using this card, which doesn't hurt them. There are no troops in Iraq, so there's no problem. No Saddam captured, right? Well, no, that doesn't matter. Then they played Sharia, got rid of a besieged regime over here. Not using their points for that, just getting rid of the regime because they think that's a good idea to try to strengthen the rule. They feel like they're in pretty good shape, but they're really worried about the WMD situation. So they've got to keep America clean as far as they're concerned until they can do something about that. This time the jihadists moved a cell into Afghanistan, which is essentially for a 1-point card. They can just move it for free because it was adjacent to Central Asia. Then they played a opium card, which put 3 more cells in there. The U.S. saw that as dangerous, so they did 2 quick disruption elements there and got some prestige off that, which is bringing them out of the hell that they were in a moment ago. So this time around the jihadists played bin Laden to dump U.S. prestige. It went all the way down to 1, and then they played this for some reason. Oh yeah, they did a jihad over in Somalia, lost 1, but got it down to poor. So now, if they can get enough forces there, like a lot of these places that are poor, it's fairly susceptible. But the biggest thing is probably they cranked this. They're looking towards that 15-1. Well, the U.S. is also looking at that, and they played this card for its event, which allowed them to inspect the jihad ad, which I'm playing face up now because of that. It doesn't normally it wouldn't be, but my memory isn't very good, so that's easy. And then they got to do a 1 aspect action for which they cleared the remaining cells. Well, they between that and this card, cleared the remaining cells out of Afghanistan. The problem is, this one triggers a cell in the UK. Now, they had to play one of a couple of cards. They probably don't want that UK card in place, but they want to keep this Let's Roll because it's useful against plots. So if a plot happens to happen, that'll help them get rid of it. It's kind of a risky situation. Hey, they're letting the UK slip in here. I'm beginning to think that wiretap was a mistake, that the leak only prevents the wiretaps. It doesn't prevent other events of that nature. I don't know, though. There's no nothing that I saw specific on the cards, and I don't think the rules are specific enough about it. I certainly looked up the leak card and it in the playbook, and it doesn't give any hint towards that. Alright, on to the jihadists again. The jihadis moved into the U.S., tried to set off a plot, didn't get one going. So the U.S. was able to play its final card. They played the Al Jazeera card, triggering the ops points first to pull out of the Gulf states, thereby negating the event effect. Now they're going to be getting a full hand of cards. I don't know that I really wanted to pull my troops home, but the card kind of suggested it. It would be my hold card otherwise, and it would cause some significant problems if it was in play. So, even though I'm hard, I want to withdraw my troops out of there. And I didn't... I could have dropped 2 more in Pakistan, and that would be useful, perhaps. But without a regime change there, I can still do most of the things that I want to do. This isn't a pure fight, so 2 troops per area is kind of good for me. I probably actually want to pull out of Afghanistan too, except for the besieged regime marker, which kind of makes it attractive, and the fact that it's right next to Central Asia, which is their key area. Alright, now we quickly go through these. Funding goes down. Ooh, that's bad. Prestige is going to go down because of the Islamic regime. And then it does not go up because I didn't get enough hard countries in play. No lapsing events, no reserves, new cards, and we're on to another turn. So now I can see that leak card. I've pulled one. It says flip 1 such marker blocking event. in the case of those specifics. I think it only blocks the specific event listed, given the wording on the leak card itself. Unfortunately, if you don't have the leak card available, if all you're relying on is the marker and the rulebook and such not, it's hard to figure that out. And the leak card got reshuffled, I believe. I don't believe there was one in my discard deck. Let me touch really quickly on the jihadist went, and I'll do theirs. They spent a couple of 2-point cards. The first one was to do travel with their United States cells, hide them, make them harder to release. The reason for this, and this is huge, they have a couple of martyrdom operations. They think they're going to be able to set off a WMD in the U.S. with a high likelihood. If they can put 4 plots in the U.S. going off, the U.S. probably can't strike them all, but they got to do it towards the end of their turn, towards the end of the game turn. In order to help promote that, they played the Shenzhen visas and shipped a couple more cells into Spain, out of Somalia and China. Anyway, on to the U.S. side. So the U.S., fearful of the WMD, and because they like the current situation in terms of if they can make it through not just this deck, but the next deck, are playing for time. And they play 2 cards to squelch the cells in the U.S. We're going to see the Spanish cells move in next. We're probably going to see the U.S. squelch those. The U.S. is playing a purely defensive game at this point. They don't want to try to rush things as long as that WMD is in play. They might take some risks on later cards if it looks obvious that they have the advantage. And that same process keeps going. Recruitment in the Philippines and Malaysia shifting through into the U.S. The U.S. just keeps wiping out these cells as they enter. This is a tricky situation. I've got the ability to shift 1 from France into the U.S. See, I've got these 2 cards, but the U.S. has 3. I don't know. I know what the U.S. cards are. They're very good. Odd, I'm going to go for the WMDs or something. Even I'll see the chance of actually, well, no, these automatically place the plots. That's what's good about them. Yeah, I've got to go in. It's how heavily I go in is the question. All right, we'll figure this out. So unfortunately, I had to use one of the martyrdom operations to travel to get a cell there. The second one, and I actually lost a cell trying to travel to the Philippines. I got 1 into place for free. The second was a move was to place those. I did indeed place the weapons of mass destruction one in there. And we'll see what happens. See, the U.S. has this pile of cards, and there's no way that they're going to let either one stay. So we'll play both of them. Gitmo's no problem. The leak is flip 1 such marker. Enhanced measures, renditions, or wiretapping. None of them are in there. So the leak does not take play as far as I can see. These go away. And one of them was a WMD one. That is out of play now. It can't come back. And that was the one WMD plot that I had managed to get the HEU for a dirty bomb. Now that leaves it on the U.S. They're holding this Anthrax card. They want to play, or Amerithrax card. After the jihadists don't get to play, they're going to want to play this. I got to figure out what for, and I'll come back for that in the end of turn values. Well, the U.S. used it to try to boost their sinking prestige here because they can't do War of Ideas with that penalty on them very well. So they're doing it to reveal some cells in Pakistan. They don't get to destroy the cells, and there's a good chance they'll just run out of there. Or not, it doesn't really matter. But on the bright side, they are reducing. The jihadist funding is falling slowly. So, as long as they can keep this from happening. And in a sense, the jihadist player could have played to up that, making more of a threat here. But had they done that, the U.S. could have squelched cells, increased their prestige. So it's kind of this hard situation where the jihadists had to go for the WMD attack. But now that the U.S. knows it's not there, they can return to their prior policy, which is to try to win the hearts and minds, as it were. Oh man, I see these and I think that I must have done some sort of disruption to cause them to happen, which of course is illegal because of FATF, and it says no disrupt unless RC. What does RC mean? Regime change, I think. Yeah. That's not good. Well, given the strength of that situation, the jihadists started accumulating cells in Pakistan. I'm just ignoring whatever was there in terms of the oops I made, if I made it. I think I did, but I can't recall. The U.S. plays a Pakistani offensive, getting rid of the FATA chip, and then an enhanced measures, which gets marked down here, I think, so that a leak can be played against it. And this allowed a disruption in there, removing a couple of the cells, increasing the prestige because of the troops, and it also killed a card out of the jihadists' hand. More struggling over Pakistan. We're on the jihadist turn here, and they're up to 6. They need one more, and they have them in Afghanistan available for a free travel. So it looks like we're going to see a major jihad in Pakistan. That's an ugly situation. Well, this is a problem. Pakistan has gone over. The jihad was successful. That drops U.S. prestige down to 1. That releases the weapons of mass destruction in the Pakistani arsenal to be used, perhaps, to win the game for the U.S. And now we come to a kind of a conundrum. The U.S. troops stay here in Pakistan, but they're not allowed to attack the cells as far as I can tell. Now, I can't do a war of ideas, but I can start slaughtering those cells if I do a regime change, and I think that's what I have to do essentially here. So we'll go ahead with that. And the U.S. did indeed go in and manage to get it up, get a lucky shot. Fair governance, ally, removes the Islamicist nation and adds it to the fair good nations. On top of that, they actually gained a prestige from going in, and they gained another one from hitting some of those cells. But now the jihadists can start positioning themselves in order to try and take advantage of the weapons they now have. Well, at the end of that, the U.S. had extra cards left at the end, so they were able to set Pakistan up to good using the war of ideas, actually, because they had crushed enough of the things. One of the problems, though, is their final play, they had to use the Lebanon war card to squelch cells. Now, right now, the jihadist is down to 3 cells. If that goes down to 0, the U.S. wins automatically, immediately. So they got to be kind of careful with that as well. On the other hand, that's a really tough victory. I've tried doing that, and as long as the jihadist is aware that he's in danger, he should be able to avoid that. But it does put extra pressure on that. He probably can't just push to get those weapons into place. So Pakistan's been converted. We're back in a good position where we got to prevent the weapons of mass destruction from happening is the main thing. We also got to sell in Iraq, kind of make up for the 2 that were destroyed. 1 went to Iraq. But I should be able to pull troops out of Pakistan fairly soon, and that'll help, because right now I'm at war status instead of low intensity where I want to be. I'll load this one up. Keep going.